For over 10 years, the name Camelot had been reserved by Coolmore, just waiting for the right horse. In the spring of 2011, a 2-year-old son of Monsieur, the highest priced yearling colt purchased by Coolmore in Europe in 2010, made a striking early impression on trainer Aidan O'Brien. The name Camelot was bestowed upon him.
And I can remember talking to Aidan O'Brien in about May of his 2-year-old year, and I said, "Oh, how's the Monsieur colt out of Tarfa?" And he said, "John," he said, "the temptation to have started with him already," he said, "has been very great." He said, "But I know I've got to just hold back." He said, "But I could win with him tomorrow." And that was in May of his 2-year-old career.
Making his debut at Premier Irish track Leopardstown in July, Camelot's lofty reputation preceded him, and he was sent off the $1.30 favourite.
Camelot stretching on is going to land the odds. Camelot wins by 2 lengths.
Pitched straight into Group 1 company next time out, and again starting odds on, he produced a breathtaking performance to take out the Racing Post Trophy, one of Europe's premier juvenile contests.
Still O'Brien waiting on Camelot in behind. What will the favourite find? He's getting there now. Zip Top leads from fencing. Here's Camelot almost on the bridle, coming through on the near side. Oh, he's a good horse, all right. Oh, Camelot at leisure. Oh, a very smart horse indeed. He lives up to the hype and wins the Racing Post Trophy in tremendous style. Cool as you like. They came through on the stand side and won this race with plenty in hand. He's clearly a colt of some talent, huge amount of talent on this evidence.
Joseph, that looked like riding a piece of work. Incredibly confident ride.
Yeah, he's I thought I was on the best horse in the race, and he never really came off the bridle.
I just caught up with John Gosden, who went out to great fencing, and he said, you know, wow, that was incredibly impressive.
You often categorise horses by putting them in brackets. Sometimes they can do things at 2, sometimes they can do things at 3 if they're later maturing. It didn't surprise me that Camelot did what he did at 2 at all, because he was so mature and so forward, so masculine and powerful. And I think that was the Danehill influence coming through with that in his pedigree. But the horses that I think are very special are the horses that really take it in the spring of their 3-year-old career, because the Guineas comes very early for us. And to go and win a Guineas over a mile so early on, you need so much speed and so much maturity to do that.
Down to the last 6 or 7 now. Camelot on the far side in the purple jacket. Looked a beautiful colt going to the start. Aidan O'Brien, doubly represented here. He's won this race 5 times. And there are rumours he regards Camelot as one of the best he has trained. From the rear, Camelot's got a lot to do at the moment. They race towards the final furlong and a half, running into the dip. Trumpet Major leads the way to Casper Netcher. Fencing is chasing hard. Camelot is running on very strongly now and coming through with French 15 on the far side. Hermeval leads that little group. Camelot coming through with French 15 on the far side. Hermeval. Camelot is just ahead from French 15. Camelot wins. Camelot narrowly to French 15. Hermeval third, far side. Coudeville, Trumpet Major, Ptolemaic, top offer well beaten in the end. A favourite's won. He's had to fight really hard. He's battled on tremendously gamely.
Yeah, he's a lot of class and he's a lot of speed. I was very happy all throughout the race. He was nice and relaxing. I always felt like getting there. He might have got a little bit tired the last 100 yards. His first time of the season, but hopefully he can come on.
Well, racing is a roller coaster game, and it's just weeks since Monsieur, one of the best stallions in the world and one of the linchpins of Ballydoyle's breeding operation, sadly died. He'd already had a wonderful career, but there was plenty more left in him, so to speak, and this colt looks like being a wonderful replacement for him.
Come the Epsom Derby, Camelot retained his unbeaten record with a superlative performance.
Now Joseph O'Brien gets to work on the favourite Camelot. He calls on the colt for an effort. He's racing to them very quickly, but getting away Astrology. His stablemates 2-3 lengths in front. Now Camelot is now turning on the heat now. He's starting to run at Astrology.
I'm a big fan of Federico Tesio, whose most famous quote was about the Epsom Derby, that the thoroughbred depends not on the way we perceive it, but on one plank of wood. And Camelot in the Derby recorded a time of 2 minutes 33.9 that was worth a time form speed figure of 128, placing him amongst the fastest Derby winners of all time. And why Tesio liked that race was because it combined speed and stamina, which he believed were not extremes but complements. And that day Camelot showed what he did on other occasions over a shorter distance as well, in that he had the ability to travel really well, but also to do so for a long time. He had sustained pace, he had the ability to go through the pain barrier, to keep going and to open out at the end of a testing 1.5 miles. It was one performance to rule them all. And I think those are the qualities which are transmitted down the generations. That's what Tesio was referring to, and that's why Camelot stood out.
Next up was the Curragh, where Camelot defied appalling conditions to become the first colt since the Great Nijinsky in 1970 to land the 2,000 guineas Epsom Derby Irish treble.
Inside the final furlong, Camelot on board to see testing ground, but Camelot has what it takes as they race up to the line. Camelot does the Derby double, wins it by about 1.5 lengths.
This trio of classic successes again saw him rated best of his generation, but then again Camelot was a standout from day one.
We know as breeders that when you foal, as we do, probably 50 or 60 foals a year, there aren't many that jump out at you. And Camelot was one of those that did. He was always the leader of the crop that we had of that 60 foals through our hands that year. And in the summer of his yearling year, we knew he was a potential sales topper at Tattersalls because he was just always a physical standout.
Mongeur's only classic winner at a mile, Camelot is out of a group winner by King Mambo, who in turn is out of a stakes winner by Dane Hill.
Where I think there is a very important thing to say how amazing Camelot was. If you think about it, his Grand Dam was by Dane Hill, which is mature speed and precocity. His Dam was by King Mambo, which is a brilliant miler, and he is by Mongeur. And that's why the horse with those three influential sires in his pedigree enabled him to be a brilliant 2-year-old, a Guineas miler, and have the influence of Mongeur to help him stay in the Derby distances. So he was the perfect horse.
The 2013 European season saw 3 different Epsom or Irish Derby winning sons of Mongeur, all sire Group 1 winners, headed by the brilliant Arc winner Trev and one of France's leading 2-year-olds, Ecto.
Well, Camelot, one of the most talked about horses of his generation, for sure. More words spent discussing his relative merits than perhaps on any other horse I can remember. But what we possibly never talked about enough is what he actually achieved. You know, the bare bones of what he achieved, which is quite straightforward. He's a champion European juvenile, courtesy of that devastating performance in the Racing Post Trophy, but also a champion 3-year-old.
He's a tremendous horse, Camelot. When you think of his first 5 races, he won them all, and 4 of them were Group 1 races, from the Racing Post Trophy onto the 2,000 guineas at Newmarket. Just elegance all the way down the hill at Epsom when he just ran away with the Derby. He showed that he had courage as well as class in the Irish Derby under very, very demanding conditions. And all in all, a terrific horse. I remember Camelot as a racehorse as a really elegant athlete. He had this flowing power that just made other horses look fairly ordinary in comparison. I stood next to the winning post as he won the Derby, and I kept looking up at the big screen and looking down the track, and I've seldom seen a Derby won so far from home. It was all a question of dial the distance in the final furlong and a half, and not many horses can run dead straight, gun barrel straight down that Epsom camber, and he hardly broke stride. He was a very, very gifted athlete over a range of trips.
A European champion at 2 and a European champion again at 3. Camelot, a true legend of the turf.